Hey, everybody. I'm excited. We have kind of an extra mini podcast this week about one of our subtopics. I saw that a good number of you in your first assignment actually dug into the topic of imposter syndrome. And I have a wonderful colleague here who's increasingly becoming an expert on the topic, and also just somebody that I really enjoyed talking with. So we decided to do an extra conversation just about imposter syndrome, and specifically we'll get a little into how we can combat imposter syndrome with some of the same techniques that we're talking about this week in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm super excited to have Tamara Martinez with us. Some of you might already know her. She's the Director of Adult Student Success and Retention. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tamara.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Happy
Just
to
so you all know, Tamara and I can talk a lot. So we're
push
going to
it.
try to keep this concentrated, but we can go on and on here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And as you know, we'll make our main conversation today imposter syndrome, which is a topic you and I both have a lot of interest in.
Yes.
Maybe that's a good way for me to start us off. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've developed an interest in imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I am what is considered a post-traditional student, right? Or I was a post-traditional student. I had done the whole college thing and didn't work the community college thing. And there were a number of reasons. And I went back to school, but I came back. I was much older. I was in a different place in my life. And I came in and I felt all this anxiety and just tension. And I was just like, oh, I don't belong in this class. I don't belong at this school. Like, I remember when I got accepted, I was like, they're crazy. Like, did she not see my transcripts? Like, what is she talking about? She thinks I'll be a great student. Like, I haven't been before. What makes you think I will be now? And I was feeling all of these feelings and didn't know exactly what it was until I started getting more into my studies. And when I heard imposter syndrome come up, I was like, oh my God. And being in an applied at the time for my undergraduate, I was an applied psych major. I was constantly diagnosing myself with everything that I heard. So, so I was like, oh, now I'm just taking on something else, but it was a recurring theme. And then when I really sat down and thought about it, I'm like, no, this is something I really do experience and feel. And then I started noticing the more I studied it and the more I spoke to people, I'm like, this is so common. Like so many of us are feeling this exact same thing and none of us are talking about it. None of us are opening up about it. And so when I got into my grad studies with counseling psychology, you and I talked about it, and I mean, we geeked out on it for ever. And so I was just like, oh, this is it. Like, this is something that I'm super passionate about. Just kind of naming and bringing it out and normalizing talking about it because it is so prevalent, especially for students, adult students. My folks.
Yeah, and you mentioned it being a big part of your story and your experience was how you gained an interest in it, which is very much true for me too. Here I am with my PhD. I've been teaching for 20 years. People would think that I feel like I have it all figured out. And you've actually seen this in your experience with me because you've TA'd with me in the past and you've seen me freak out before and after class going, oh my God, I think that was okay. Was it? I don't know. Maybe that could have been better. Oh my gosh. And you were going, I didn't know you were like this. And there's this misconception that folks who've achieved something or earned something, like at some point they know they belong or they know they have it figured out or they know they're smart enough or whatever that is. And that's not really how it works.
No.
And you mentioned anxiety, a sense of not belonging, not believing compliments. So that's probably a good segue for us. Maybe for anybody in our group who doesn't already know what this is, maybe if we start by defining it.
Yeah. So I like to keep it real simple when I'm defining imposter syndrome. And it's really just this belief that you don't belong somewhere or that you're going to be found out. Like you somehow slip through the cracks and you're like, I'm just faking it till I make it. And hoping that no one sees behind the veil of my faking it. That's my own personal definition,
Uh,
but you might have a little, something a little
no, I think that's a great definition.
different.
I think that's perfect. And and it's interesting as you've said, well, as I started to say, and you did too, it's like even when the folks around us say, like, welcome, we want you here,
Oh, yeah.
or you do such a good job, or I admire this so much about you, whatever that is, even when there's evidence coming at us, we find it hard to actually take that evidence.
Yeah. In,
It's some, oh, go
in
ahead.
that we not only do we not take the evidence, but we will also almost combat it. Like we will almost we want to add something and be like, oh no, like if I say, oh wow, Robin, your style is amazing, and you'll be like, oh, I barely throw it together, or oh, it's not as great. It could be better. Like we can't ever just say thank you. Like you're right, I do, or I love it too. Like, even if you do, even
Yeah.
if you really truly feel
There-
that,
There's
it's
almost a fear in saying thank you and taking it at
yeah.
face value. And actually, maybe that's a good segue. We've admitted we both experience it a lot. I'm curious, what are some of the places it shows up for you?
Um, it's interesting. It's almost easier to try to see where it doesn't show up for me, because I feel like I can see it everywhere. I mean, a lot of it showed up when I was in school. I've always been a high achieving student until I got to high school. I went to a really demanding high school, and it kind of beat me up a little bit, and it kind of messed with my confidence. So when I came back to school and I was doing well, I thought, maybe professors were going easy on me, or they were just, it was never me. I never thought I was doing well. I just thought, the professors are nice, they're being kind. It also shows up for me now, in my current role. I am, full disclosure, I just graduated with my master's last year. Yay, thank you. Um, and then something that does not happen often, I got a director position right out of my grad program. That's just not something that happens. So in this role, I often find that I'm like, do I, they're gonna know, like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, and
And
with
if I could jump in, that's an interesting one because I know you and I have talked about this a lot. You've shared that with me, and what I always say is that speaks to exactly how much you've impressed everyone, that you interned in that office and they actively recruited you as a director because they were so impressed by you. So I'm always trying to reframe that. Like, what does that say that people saw that in you? But it's still hard to accept that story, right? I was talking about with George in our other video, like the stories we tell themselves ourselves, and it's difficult to reconstruct our stories.
It is. I think it has a lot to do with, what those around. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it feels good to hear someone say those things about you, but believing those things is really hard. And I think it comes from a lot of different places, right? I think it can come from culture, like, when we're talking about like social culture, your what is it? What's the word? Like your cultural background. There are certain cultures that have a lot more. Um, they're a lot more strict about academics, and you needing to be, a perfect student, or having to go into a certain field, and having to excel in those things. I think a lot of times too it can come from like familial pressures of, not wanting to fall into whatever traps or spaces that you, like for me, not wanting to be a part of the statistics that everyone says Black women go into. So I try to combat that so much. And if I ever feel like, I'm falling into that, even when I'm hearing people tell me like you're doing amazing, a piece of me, that little voice is like, do they, something I grew up a lot with is, you're doing this, or you are this for a Black girl. You're pretty for a Black girl. You're smart for a Black girl. So when I hear sometimes, oh, you're doing so great, you're so great in this role, like a lot of the times I will internalize that very benign statement, that very just plain statement as for you, someone else in this role maybe doing better, but you're doing as well as you can for you, for your type of people. And even though that's not what is being said. So it's
That-
it's hard.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that speaks to an important part of the conversation around this, which is that many of us have internalized some ideas about some parts of our identity, and we're not to blame for that. The
No.
society, the structures around us are to blame, right? It's problematic that, to you sharing that, right, that you didn't see more Black professionals reflecting you back to yourself, more Black women, particularly, like, right, if you were seeing more Black women professors, for example, right, and then you see someone and say, hey, I want to do what they're doing, that our structures are not set up equitably, and there are messages on our media all of the time. And we talk about inequities in law and healthcare and all these systems around us, that those are the reasons that it shows up inequitably across different communities. Anyone can experience anyone
Any-
experiences
Anyway,
imposter syndrome. But if I'm a woman, if I'm a person of color, maybe I have invisible or visible disabilities, for, a member of the LGBTQ community, for any part of historically marginalized identities, that may amplify our sense of
absolutely.
imposter syndrome. And that's not we are not to blame for that. It's important to name that so that we can call it what it is. So I'm glad that you're naming that. Um, and I'll share with you a little bit of, it's interesting to me because I think a lot of where it comes from is structural and societal. I think it also comes from things like growing up in our family patterns. And I know for me, a big one is that I was raised in a house that really, really valued being humble.
Mhm.
And in some ways, I think being humble or humility is a good value. But when you take it to the extreme, the message is don't be proud of yourself. It was literally don't be too proud of yourself. You're
Yeah.
not all that. And
Yep.
I can remember lots of instances as a child where I had, won a game or got straight A's or something. And I was so proud of myself and I was ready for my mom to say, good job. And it's kind of like, so you always get A's, or, so don't be so proud of that. You're not all that. And I can hear that voice. My
Yeah.
mom meant well. She meant to really socialize me into the value of being humble. But I hear that voice saying, you're not all that. Don't be confident right now. Anybody could knock you down a peg anytime.
Yeah.
And so there's
Even when
something
it's
around
not their
balance.
intention, to your point with your mom, like I don't think her intention was to make you feel smaller or not proud of those things. I think we're all affected by those societal pressures, right? And I know for women, a lot of times that came from trying to protect their children from the outside world. Like you can't go around being this proud or being this secure because men might come and be like, she's so cocky or she's so this. Like, who does she think she is? Trying to appease certain men in certain spaces, you know, in order for you to move up, you can't come and be this big, loud, and proud person. They want you to be meek and humble. And then they're like, oh, well, we can work with you. So I feel for like our parents and us and people bringing up children because of these societal pressures, we often will perpetuate those same things in different ways, but out of, you know, not out of malice
Out
or
of malice, out of
yeah,
good intent, but then
good
we've
intent.
internalized that message. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, and you mentioned earlier the value of naming it. And
Yeah.
that's an interest area for me too. The value of giving it a name. And we should acknowledge, first of all, it's not really a syndrome, right? We call it imposter syndrome. It's also sometimes called imposter phenomenon.
Yeah.
But this is not something in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manuals. It's not some kind of a disorder of any type. It's just a sort of a pop psychology term, really. But it's a pop psych term that I'm very interested in because I do find that there's a value in naming it. And
Yes.
um,
And
what do you see
recognizing.
as the value in that?
I think recognizing it, naming it, especially when you're in the midst of it, can kind of give you this like sense of power, almost like taking that power back, right? Like, and actually in a class that you taught that I was a student in once, You had us, not only did we name it, but we kind of drew out what our imposter syndrome looked like. And to that point, I remember mine was this creepy little guy thing, and he had on this really low hat, and he had on a jacket, and his only thing you could see is his eyes because he had like his cloak on. And I think naming it and kind of picturing him allowed me to focus on him and be like, no, 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 like I see you and I'm not giving you this space. I'm not giving you this power. Like I do deserve to be here. And as I named it, as I spoke to him, he kind of got smaller and lighter and faded away. Like he kind of hid and it's like, oh, she's too big for me. Like I have to go. So I think it does. It gives you this sense of power back when you're able to recognize that you're feeling it in that moment and you're just like, I do belong, I do deserve, I am worthy. And then reminding yourself of all the reasons why you belong and why you deserve and why you are worthy, and not just by happenstance or by chance that you got there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that's why this fits really well into our week on examining our thoughts. I
Mhm.
think about what George was saying to us in the other talk about when you recognize an irrational thought, you like put stop sign up for a minute, and then you have a chance to look at it,
Yeah.
which also connects back to our first talk with Orlando about the space between us and our thoughts. So if that little monster is up here saying, you don't belong, you did a good job, they're going to figure you out, those are thoughts, those are words, they're sentences, they're stories. And I have a chance to go, wait a minute, and look at it and think about what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean something's wrong with me for having that, because most of us in this class, maybe all of us in this class, deal with this. So first of all, it's human. It's valid that I struggle with this. But now that I've named it, I can choose what to do with it. And one thing you just mentioned is the evidence, like naming what I've accomplished. And you mentioned a story earlier that about, your position that you're in now. And I know you've heard me share the story of, at one point I was the chair of the psychology department, and I had been voted in by all of my colleagues. And it was later that same day, and most of the folks had gone home, but one of my colleagues, who was also a friend, was there with me. And she said, oh my gosh, Robin, you're going to be so great. I'm so excited. And she gave me a hug. And while she was hugging me, I started to cry. And she said, what is it? What's wrong? And I said, but what if I'm not? What if I let you all down? And she was just like, what are you talking about? Everybody believes in you. And I said, yeah, but what if they're all wrong? And she
Yeah.
made the most interesting point to me. She said, every person around this table sees that you are capable of this. So if you're going to choose to believe that we're all wrong and you're right,
Yeah.
and something clicked in me in that moment, like, oh, that would almost be a little weirdly narcissistic if I
Yeah.
said I'm right and all of you are
All of you are
wrong.
wrong.
So it was a moment to go, oh, so I guess I'm going to take everybody else at their word right now,
Yeah.
even though I'm scared.
Yeah.
Um, and that almost goes to the cognitive stuff too, of like, well, what am I scared of? And you get to name those things too and realize that it's highly unlikely that these horrible stories that we're writing about all the things that could possibly go wrong, right? That's the catastrophizing. The likelihood of these stories that we've created ever coming to pass is so small. So we can notice those things. Am I telling a story about something that's coming, which is catastrophizing? Am I mind reading? I've often already told myself that this person must think I'm stupid and they must be going, why is she here? And what is she doing?
Yeah.
The person probably isn't thinking about me at all.
And I was just about to say that. Like, I think oftentimes with the storytelling, we will put those things onto other people, and we'll know we've messed up a little bit, or we slipped, or we did something that maybe wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. And we'll think that that's it. I've been caught. I've been found out. Look at how they're looking at me. Oh, I just know that they're talking about me. And they're not. They don't even know that you've done anything or that you felt like they're like, wow, that was amazing. I'm so excited. Um,
Yes, and they're busy worried about what other people think of them.
yes,
The
exactly. You're
reality.
all on your own little island worried about what everyone's thinking of you, and none of you are thinking of each other at all. Like you're all just concerned in your own little bubble, just
Yeah.
trying to make it. It's
Yeah. If,
so,
and if we're thinking of each other, it's to say, wow, she did that really well.
yes,
I can do that well. Like she just
yeah,
did such a good presentation. I don't know if I'm going to be able to present
yeah,
that
all of
well.
that.
Like
Yep, always,
that's how people are
always.
thinking.
Yeah,
Another one I think that comes up for a lot of us, because a lot of us are perfectionists, a lot of us are high achievers, and you would think that the more you achieve, the less imposter syndrome you have. But in fact, high achievers, which I
yeah,
think just being in college means you're a high achiever. So everybody in this class is a high achiever. You've made it to college, right? That's one of the highest populations of folks who experience imposter syndrome is
yeah,
people who are achievers. And a lot of us, I think, are perfectionists.
yeah,
And then what we've fallen into from that cognitive section is all or nothing thinking. Like
yes,
if I'm doing everything absolutely perfectly, I'm okay. If I messed up in one place,
I've
I
completely failed. Yeah.
mhm.
And it's so weird that we do that. Like one small thing can tip the scale and just completely derail us when it's almost never the case. Like I just there's you I'm hard pressed to try to figure out a time where someone may have made one oops and and it ruined everything. And I do think that there's something to say about high achievers, people in college, and they get to this space and it's almost as if the higher you go, the more imposter syndrome kind of tries to rear its ugly little head, right? And so I'm currently doing having to combat this often, and um with applying to a doctoral program, and I'm sitting here thinking, you know I in my head, I barely skated by, in my master's, like,
And
I'm
even as you say that, I'm over here going, what? For you to
but
say you barely
but
skated
this is
by,
these
what?
are real feelings, like, and this is the problem with it is that I know, with imposter syndrome, it's one of those things where it's like, I know that my thoughts are irrational. Like, I know that. I'm not so far into it that I'm like, no, this is absolutely no, I know they're irrational, but they're still there. And it's just
Yeah,
like,
they still show
how
up. They still
they
show up and
just,
talk to us.
yes,
Yes, which is
they're,
why I love the monster exercise. It might be a good one for our class this week. Every week I have
oh
us
yeah,
do a range of activities, and I think that might actually be a great one this week, whether
I
you
hope
pick him.
so.
Yeah, because it really helps to realize that it's a thought that's coming to visit you. It's not
Right.
inside of you, it's not you, it's not reality.
No,
That there's something external saying to you,
yes.
hey, you might be doing a bad job or might not belong, that you get to look at that thing and choose how to respond to it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and it's not, I know that you've experienced it. Like I said, I've seen it, or you said you shared, like I've seen it. And I remember, TAing with you, and you were like, oh, how was it? It was probably bad. And I'm like, it was amazing. I was having a hard time being a TA because I was in the class, like, I wanted to be like, yeah. And it's like, I can't engage like this. I was like, so it's,
It,
and it's just one of those things where it doesn't matter how knowledgeable or how experienced we are with these things. They're real feelings that are really need to be acknowledged, and it's really about how you respond to those feelings in that moment, and reminding yourself, like, this is not the truth. This is really just something, a story I'm telling myself.
Yeah. And next week, we're actually going to be talking about feelings and emotions and just honoring those. So it's not that my feelings are not valid if I feel like this. Feelings are always valid. It's
Yes.
that the thoughts don't necessarily represent reality. So I can honor that feeling at the
Yes.
same time that I can go, oh, it's a story I'm telling myself, and I can change the story. I can do both of those together. And something else I'm thinking about right now is the value of the people who prop us up. You and I, either one of us, when one of us is crashing, we can call the
Yes.
other one and get this amazing pep talk and feel so much better about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I have a lot of folks like that in my circle, knowing who your people are who talk you up. And
Yes.
not everybody in our life does. We might
No.
have some folks we see on a regular basis and in our families or in different work roles we're in or whatever that is. There may be some folks we see don't always make us feel good about ourselves. And when we're seeking to build up, when we're dealing with imposter syndrome, there's a chance to really intentionally seek out the folks who are good at seeing the best in us and go, I know I always feel better when I talk to this person. They always help me see the best in myself. That's who I'm going to call right now.
1000%. And it's so important to actually know, having that support. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't always have to come from somebody who is necessarily like, oh, that's my best friend or sometimes it's going to come from somebody who's like, this professor always supported me and is always encouraging me. And I know that if I talk to them, I'll feel better about myself. Sometimes it might be a trusted, classmate who's like just been there with you. And it's like, and it may not even be something where you have to go to them and be like, I need some encouragement. It might just be like a chat and just talking with each other. And you just know, like, I just feel so much more uplifted when I'm with you. Just being around people who have that positive energy, that good outlook, or someone who just understands where you're coming from. It makes a world of difference of being like, one, I'm not on this island alone. It actually doesn't exist. It's not, you are surrounded by folks who get what you're going through. And two, that you don't have to combat these feelings and the storytelling by yourself. And you can just bring it out there and someone's gonna be like, yeah, girl, I absolutely, yes, I feel that too.
I experienced that too.
Yes,
B, you're amazing. Let me
you're
tell you right
amazing.
now why you're amazing. And that might even be another good activity. I've put myself through this one and I've assigned it in classes on this topic before. It can be a little vulnerable, but to have a very intentional conversation with someone who is able to see the good in you and actually listen, to kind of just create a little space for them to tell you what they see about you, why they admire you, what they think you're good at, what they see that you bring to the world, can really kind of hit you like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's an amazing booster. It's a endorphin booster, right? Like, you do feel a little uncomfortable, I think, initially, like, which also goes back to the whole imposter syndrome thing, right? It's that discomfort of why can't someone tell you how amazing and great you are? Because it's true. And then you sit there, and once you name that feeling of like, oh, I see it's creeping up, and you're like, I recognize you, and you're gonna have to take a back seat while I take in all this amazing stuff. You feel this like boost of like, I am great. Like, and that's okay. That's a great thing to be great. It's amazing. You should be proud that you're great. And we're all great. Like, there's
Okay
no,
to own that you're great.
it is okay. In fact, you should. You should walk around and be like, yeah, hi, I'm great. I'm Tamara, I'm great.
Exactly. That's life goals for me right there.
Right.
And I want that for all my students. I want it for myself, and it's something I'm still working toward, and it's something I
Yes,
want for all of my students as well.
absolutely.
And that might be a great note for us to wrap up on today.
Mhm.
So I will just say thank you, Tamara. You are someone I really appreciate in my life for this reason, because we always have the best talks.
We do, and thank you so much for having me. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome coming into this, but of course I got to talk to you about it, and I was just like, oh no, we can do this. This is great. So I'm so happy I got to have this conversation with you.
Yes, and for all our students, especially if you're a WEOC student, and if you haven't met Tamara before, seek her out, because this person is here specifically to support you in your journey. So if you don't know Tamara, get to know her.
Yes.
And I will follow up with you all with some more guidelines for our posts and activities this week, and wishing everybody a great week. Bye.
Bye.